Hey, good morning, dear ones. I know it's been a while since I've last posted a video, and I will be, from this point moving forward, posting more regularly. But this is Jasi, your personal praise coach. Now, I know that many of you may be wondering what in the world is a praise coach. Very briefly stated, and using my own defining terms, a praise coach is someone who helps others to tap into their own inner godlike qualities and uniqueness so they can discover their individualized area of dominion so they can begin to live life on this earth from that experience, which is in alignment with Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. But my highest objective as a praise coach is to help others understand praise, because it is said that people perish because of their lack of knowledge. And although we may hold a form of godliness, we deny the powers thereof because many of us don't understand what praise is. Praise is the single thing that connects the portals of heaven and earth, or higher vibrational thinking and lower vibrational thinking. Praise is the single thing that changes energy. We call it gratitude, but gratitude is another form of praise. Now, my desire is that after we understand better the concepts and principles of praise, we can begin to utilize them so we can begin to experience our desired results on this physical plane and begin to live a life of abundance, the kind of life that Christ says that we can have. Now, before we jump into today's lessons plan, I believe that it's imperative for me to say that when I read the Bible or teach from the Bible, I don't view the Bible as a book of history or historical figures. Instead, I view the characters as forms of thought. So when I view and read the Bible, it's always from an esoteric point of view, and each character represents thinking for me. So what the Bible has become for me is a way to think, or a way not to think, and a way to feel and a way not to feel. So that way we can begin to harmonize right thinking and right feeling, which is the true nature for prayer and praise. All right, so getting all of that out of the way, today I'm going to be teaching on a very important topic that I believe that many people will be able to identify with. Now, the topic is called Killing Out the Poverty Giant. Killing out the poverty giant. Now, I feel that I must give a little bit of backdrop on how this thought came to be. So several days ago, I was in meditation and I was communing with the God Fabric, and I was silently talking to God about a few things, poverty, worry, and several other things. And the God Fabric had communed with my spirit and said, "You must kill out the poverty giant." And I responded, "Well, how does a person do that?" And I received an answer the following day, which said, "You must cut off its head." And immediately the story of David and Goliath came to mind. So I started to do esoteric research on the story of David, which is found in 1 Samuel chapter 17. And it's there where I'll be teaching from. Now, this lesson plan is going to cover the span of 3 days, which kind of guarantee that I'll be dropping more videos. So speaking of videos, if you do like this video here, you find it to be informative, you find that it feeds your your mind and your spirit, then please feel free to subscribe, like it, and most importantly, share it along with your community so that it can be a blessing and benefit to them also. So for today, I'm going to be going over the first 11 verses of 1 Samuel chapter 17. Tomorrow, I'll be going over verses 12 through 31. And the following day, I'll be going over 32 through 51. But without further ado, let's jump into it. All right. Verse 1. The Philistines. This edition is the New Living Translation. I kind of like this one better than the King James Version, just because it gives a more contemporary feel. All right, the Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camped between Soko in Judah and Azekah at Ephes Dammim. So immediately we see the Philistines, which represent a thought. And it says that this thought mustered other thoughts to create an army. And verse 2, Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the valley of Elah. So here we see Saul gathering his thoughts. Verse 3, so the Philistines and the Israelites faced each other on opposite hills with the valley in between them. So whenever we see a place, either of mountains or hills, it represents a way of thinking. It represents high thinking. So here we see that we have two opposing army of thoughts getting ready to do battle for over the hills, which is your mind. So when we see hills or mountains, it represents the highest form of thinking. So it says that the Philistines had gathered on one side, and the Israelites, Saul and his army, gathered on the other side. And in between them was the valley. The valley represents the fleshly state or the physical plane. So whichever thought would prevail in your mind, which would be made manifest on the physical plane. All right. Verse 4. Then Goliath, a Philistine champion. So here we see an introduction to a different kind of thought, a champion of thoughts, a dominant thought, a prevailing thought. So it says that this prevailing thought, this champion from Gath, came out of the ranks to face the forces of Israel. Now, when I initially did my studying, I didn't think that the description of his apparel would be necessary, but the God Fabric said it's indeed important that you make mention of it because it's very vital to the story. Goliath, a champion, he came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. And here's his description. He was over 9 feet tall. He wore a bronze helmet, a bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore bronze leg armor. He carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. Verse 7, the shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. And his armor bearer walked ahead of him, carrying a shield. So all of that, verse 7, simply says that Goliath was fully protected. This prevailing thought was fully protected. And even more so, he had an armor bearer who carried a shield in front of him to further protect, which was already protected. Verse 8, Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. So here we have a prevailing thought yelling out to the other side, taunts. Why are you all coming out to fight? I am the champion, but you are only servants. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, you will be our slaves. Now, I want to put a pin right there because I think it's extremely important to not look at this as men looking to conquer other men in this scenario here. Here, we're talking strictly about thoughts. So the prevailing thought calls out to the opposing armies and says, you send out your dominant thought, and if that prevailing thought conquers me, which is the current prevailing thought, then all of these thoughts will become subservient to you. But if you don't win and I conquer you, then you're subject to me. I defy the armies, verse 10. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. And when Saul and the Israelites heard this, when the leader of the righteous thought heard the request of the prevailing thought, he began to quake and tremble with fear. So that's verses 1 through 11. There's a lot of information there to unpack. Now, I just want to offer up a quick prayer because perhaps the prevailing thought is causing you to quake in fear. Are you fearful today? Are you worried? If you feel like that this prevailing thought has caused you to bathe in self-doubt, then I just want to offer up a quick prayer that the God fabric, the great energetic fabric, will begin to hold you and maintain you. Father, I ask that you will begin to hold the minds and the hearts of the people and secure them in you. Hold them in a stable place. For we all face a prevailing thought. But the enemy says to send a man who is able. And we're told that with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. So begin to do what seems to be impossible in the lives of the ones who subscribe to who you are. Bless your children on this day, O great fabric, in the powerful name of the Christ conscience. Now, I honor you. I look forward to spending more time with you tomorrow, as we go over verses 12 through 31. But until then, I want you all to try your best to vibrate on the highest plane possible. Greatest love to each of you.